Amazing intern steps in as billionaire's lawyer misses trial revealed, 600 million saved. Mia stood outside the Grand Chicago courthouse, her heart pounding. Today was the day. The buzz of the city matched the chaos in her mind. She was just 23, an intern for the powerhouse attorney, Stella. Yet here she was, on the brink of something monumental. The stakes? A billionaire's facing a lawsuit that could tear his empire apart, $600 million on the line. What would her mother, Karen, think? That fierce woman who raised Mia and her younger brother, Liam, alone after their father walked out. The courtroom filled with tense energy. Eyes flicked from the judge's bench to the gallery where Tom, the victim's father, sat, a portrait of heartbreak and resolve. Mia felt the air thicken with shared anguish. Tom had lost his job at the factory after years of hard work. Now, he clung to hope for his son's justice. This man represented all the families crushed by the weight of the system. Then came the bombshell. Stella was missing. Mia felt the ground shift beneath her. Panic swelled in her chest like a tidal wave ready to crash. But, somehow, she couldn't let fear paralyze her. She had prepared for this moment, her fingers dancing over the law books at her mom's tiny kitchen table, studying late into the night. If she faltered now, it wouldn't just crush her, it would crush so many others. As court began, Mia took a deep breath. She would either be the heroine or fall flat on her face. "Your Honor, I'll represent the defense," she declared, her voice steady even though her heart raced. The deliberations cracked open with tension. Mia's mind buzzed with the enormity of the challenge. With each argument rendered in a whirlwind of legal jargon, she searched for a lifeline, something solid to hold on to. Then she found it, a small piece of evidence hidden among pages, a critical file that could not only defend their billionaire client but also expose the factory's unfair treatment of workers. There it was, a twisting path of righteousness and moral decay coiling tighter around her heart. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mia's breath caught as she turned to Tom in the gallery. His face, etched with weariness and heartbreak, screamed for justice. Could she really save the billionaire at the cost of Tom's fight? In that electric moment, as Tom caught her gaze, Mia felt the weight of the decision crush her. She had been taught integrity, loyalty to her roots. Was success measured in numbers or in heart? Just as she was about to make her move, chaos erupted. An unexpected revelation shattered the courtroom, sending shockwaves through everyone present. The tension morphed into something palpable and terrifying. This was more than just a trial, it was a turning point, not only for her but for the struggling families counting on her. Would she choose the path that honored her family's struggles or push forward into a world where money bought justice? In the silence that followed, all eyes turned to Mia, the world held its breath. What would she decide? Mia felt the weight of countless eyes upon her, the silence in the courtroom so thick she could almost slice through it. Her heart raced, a drumbeat of uncertainty echoing through her. She knew in that moment what she had to do. This trial was a microcosm of everything: the struggle for justice, the fight against systemic greed, and the fight for her own moral compass. She took a breath that felt like an eternity. "Your Honor," she started, her voice breaking through the heavy silence, "I need to examine a crucial piece of evidence before we proceed." Her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them in front of her, a flicker of confidence igniting within. The judge, looking slightly taken aback by her unexpected authority, nodded. "Proceed." Mia moved to her seat at the defense table, her palms sweaty against the smooth surface. She took a moment to gather her thoughts and opened the file she had stumbled upon earlier. The words jumped out at her like unwelcome guests, but she forced herself to focus. Every sentence was tainted with the struggle of workers like Tom, and every piece of evidence she uncovered could drive a wedge between justice and revenge. Your Honor, Mia said, her voice rising with conviction, this document reveals a pattern of negligence and unfair treatment at the factory. The safety protocols were ignored, ultimately leading to the tragedy that befell Tom's family. The gallery broke into whispers, and she could feel Tom's eyes burning into hers. She continued, the company isn't just defending its billionaire owner, it's sidestepping accountability for its destructive practices. A gasp rippled through the courtroom as murmurs intensified. Tom's expression shifted from despair to something more formidable: determination. At that moment, Mia realized she wasn't just defending a billionaire, she was standing up for every worker who had been cast aside. The defense attorney, an experienced man with a steely gaze, leaned forward. Objection, Your Honor. This is irrelevant to the case at hand. Your Honor, Mia interjected quickly, it is relevant if we seek the truth. It's essential to understand the environment that led to this disaster. The judge raised an eyebrow, intrigued. I'll allow some latitude. Proceed, Ms. Thompson. Mia felt her pulse quicken. She dove deeper into the documents, laying bare the factory's shocking violations. The tension in the room escalated palpably as she painted a picture of criminal negligence, all while balancing her growing fear that the truth could put her future on the line. As she spoke, she could see the expressions on the jurors' faces shift. First confusion, then frustration, and finally understanding. Her heart swelled with hope, but doubt crept back in. What if her efforts to unveil the truth meant the billionaire could escape consequence and leave Tom even more distraught? The defense attorney shot her a glare, clearly irked at the trajectory she was taking. With every point she made, Mia felt the fine line between victim and aggressor thinning, threatening to swallow her whole. And then came the moment she both dreaded and anticipated. What do you mean to achieve, Ms. Thompson? The judge asked, probing her intentions. Mia swallowed hard, her gaze unwavering. Justice, Your Honor. A chance for dignity for Tom and for companies to be held accountable. With her heart racing and the moment hanging in the balance, she felt the power of decision loom before her. It was about more than just a verdict, it was about integrity, the principles that had shaped her life. Just then, the courtroom doors swung open with a loud creak. All eyes turned toward the sound. Who could it be? Would they bring chaos or clarity? The only thing Mia could think was, this was just the beginning. As the courtroom doors swung open, a young woman rushed in, her long dark hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. Mia couldn't believe her eyes. It was Jess, her intern, breathless and wide-eyed. The heavy hush pulled taut in the room, making the thud of Jess's hurried footsteps seem like a drum echoing against the walls. What is she doing here? The defense attorney hissed, raising a skeptical eyebrow. He shot a sidelong glance at the judge, clearly perturbed by this interruption. Mia's heart raced for an entirely different reason now. Jess had called earlier that morning, sounding distraught about a last-minute development, but Mia hadn't expected her to storm in. Jess approached Mia, holding a stack of papers with shaking hands. Sorry I'm late, she whispered, breathless. You need to see this. Mia reached for the papers, her insides twisting with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. Just as she was about to unfold the first page, the defense spoke up. Your Honor, I formally object to this distraction. This trial is not a circus for emotional theatrics. Calm down, Mr. Vaughn, the judge said, annoyance coloring his tone. Let the young woman speak. We're not here to waste time. With that, Jess took a deep breath and stepped forward. Thank you, Your Honor, she said, her voice steadying. I discovered evidence that can change everything. The corporation's contract explicitly states how safety procedures were to be followed. They didn't just ignore them, they actively hid them from inspectors. Mia felt the blood rush to her head, heart thumping in her chest as she processed this revelation. What Jess was holding could be the key to the case. A flicker of hope ignited in Tom's eyes, and Mia shot him a reassuring glance. She couldn't leave this moment unseized, every lifeline was critical. "Your Honor," she implored, "this evidence is essential. It shows intent, that the company was not just negligent, but willfully disregarded safety to save costs. It adds fire to our fight for justice. Bring it to the witness stand." The judge commanded. "Let us hear it." As Jess handed over the papers, Mia felt a sense of unity forge between her and Jess. They shared a moment, a silent acknowledgement that their own futures depended on the outcome of this very trial. Determination coursed through her, a shared anxiety and belief that they could make a difference together. The murmur of the gallery escalated again. Were they shocked by Jess's sudden testimony, or by the potential ramifications it could bear on the trial? The defense attorney stood tall, visibly frustrated. "Your Honor, this is preposterous. I demand that we verify the authenticity of this new evidence. I see no reason to believe it wasn't forged or manipulated to suit the narrative." "Enough," the judge shot back, his gavel poised to strike. "We shall address these concerns in due time. But for now, we need to assess the evidence presented. I will allow questioning of this new information." Mia felt a surge of adrenaline. What if this was the turning point? What if this meticulously sought evidence could lead to a breakthrough that Tom desperately needed? She glanced at Tom, who now looked more hopeful than ever, and she could feel their shared resolve. Just as the questioning commenced, a remorseless laugh echoed through the courtroom, slicing through the tension like a knife. It was the billionaire himself, sitting in the back, arms folded, a smirk plastered across his face. "I can't believe you think this will change anything," he said, his words dripping with condescension. "You really think you can take me down with flimsy bits of paper?" Something snapped within Mia. This wasn't just a trial anymore, it was a fight against arrogance, a battle for every worker who had ever sacrificed their well-being in the name of profit. "Flimsy?" she challenged, her voice gaining strength. "You've overlooked the power of the truth, and that's where your downfall lies." For just a moment, the courtroom fell silent. All eyes were on her and the billionaire, who seemed taken aback. What would happen? If she pressed on? Would the truth shatter everything he represented, or would it all fall apart? With her heart racing, Mia realized this was more than just a case. It was a defining moment, not just for Tom and the workers, but for her. Would she be strong enough to stand against him? The weight felt heavier now, but she wouldn't back down. She was just getting started. Mia felt the intensity of the room pressing down on her. Everyone was holding their breath, their eyes darting between her and the billionaire. It was a showdown, a moment where her words would either resonate with justice or evaporate into the courtroom air like so many forgotten arguments. The defense attorney, Mr. Vaughn, quickly regained his composure, his smug expression returning as he aimed to deflect the focus. "Your Honor, we cannot entertain unverified documents that pop up out of nowhere. This is a measure of desperation," he said, flipping his hand dismissively. Jess stood defiantly at the witness stand, her hands gripping the edges as if drawing strength from the wood. Mia could see the fear mixed with determination in her eyes. This was more than just a trial, it was stakes on both sides. Jess had put herself forward, ready to fight for truth, and Mia couldn't let her down. "Your Honor," Mia interjected, "the authenticity of the evidence can be confirmed within moments. We have implicated parties who are willing to verify this. This is not merely hearsay, it's the embodiment of greed risking lives. We owe it to the victims to pursue this." The judge nodded slowly as he considered the weight of Mia's argument. "Very well. I'll allow verification, but if this evidence turns out to be fabrications, there will be consequences." Mia felt a chill run through her. The stakes were high, and the giant looming behind her had the resources to crush any attempts to challenge him. But seeing Jess standing tall, she found resolve. They were all in this together. Just then, the silence was pierced by a voice. Someone from the gallery had spoken up. A worker, tired and worn but with the fire of indignation in their eyes. "You think justice is about money?" they shouted. "It's about lives. We need accountability." The gallery buzzed with murmurs of agreement, a wave of raw emotion rising in the room. This wasn't just a battle between Mia and the billionaire, it was a rallying cry for all the stakeholders who had been affected by the corporation's negligence. "Your Honor," Mr. Vaughn sneered, "are we now hearing from the peanut gallery? This isn't a town hall meeting. This is serious." Mia couldn't help but feel a spark of vitality from the worker's words. She leaned into the moment. "Not just a peanut gallery, but voices of the people you've profited from," she replied firmly. The judge seemed momentarily engrossed, the thrill of real debate electrifying the air. "Let us keep it professional," he warned. And then Jess spoke up, her voice steady. "What if we hear from the workers themselves? They deserve a chance to tell their stories, to share what really happened. It's not just about paper and proof, it's about reality." Mia felt a heat rise within her. Yes. If we could just hear from those directly affected, those who endured the days without proper safety measures. The gallery ignited. Supportive murmurs rippled throughout as people began standing, empowered. It wasn't just about justice for Tom anymore, it was a communal swell of anger and despair blending into a movement for change. Seeing the billionaire's smirk falter, Mia allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe this wasn't just their fight, it was a shared awakening. "Your Honor," Mia said, her voice gaining strength as she intervened, "this evidence, these stories, they could redefine our understanding of liability in corporate governance. Let us bind the truth with those who fought through it." The judge nodded, weighing his options. "Very well, if the gallery has relevant testimony, we can hear them. Let us see where this leads." As people began to rise from their seats, Mia's heart pounded. She felt they were at the cusp of something monumental. Words of truth were ready to break free from Jess, from the workers, from every soul affected. And then she caught sight of the billionaire's face. It was a mask of confidence slowly cracking. This time, his laughter had lost its bite, he looked uneasy. The moment hung in the air, pregnant with potential. Would they harness this energy to bring about real change? Mia pressed her lips together, feeling their hopes resting in her hands. The next steps lay wide open, each filled with the unknown. Real justice was within reach, and the time to strike was now. Could they truly overturn the tide of corporate arrogance? Would the truth come crashing down like a wave, uprooting the very foundations he so gleefully built upon? The air crackled with excitement as people began to rise, eager to share their stories. Mia's heart raced, caught in the moment, surrounded by individuals ready to challenge the status quo. She could hear whispers of anticipation echoing through the gallery, voiced hopes for real change spreading like wildfire. Jess motioned for the first witness, a middle-aged man named Sam, to step forward. His hands trembled as he stood at the edge of the courtroom, a tangible reminder of the struggles he had faced. Mia took a deep breath, knowing that each testimony would add weight to their cause. "Please state your name and occupation for the court," Jacob, the bailiff, instructed. "Sam Thompson, former safety supervisor at Greenhill Corp," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper but growing steadier as he continued, "I quit because I couldn't live with myself anymore, what I saw every day." A hush fell over the room, even the billionaire seemed to lean in, curiosity etched on his face. "What did you see, Mr. Thompson?" Mia asked gently, encouragingly. She could almost feel the rising tide of empathy. "I watched workers, my friends, pushed to their limits. Safety measures were ignored, corners cut to save costs. I reported it. But nothing changed. It was all about profits. His voice cracked, a mixture of shame and anger spilling onto the courtroom floor. With each word, Mia felt an invisible thread binding them together: Sam, the workers, Jess, and the gallery, all determined to lift the veil of corporate denial. The judge listened intently, the gravity of their words settling in the air like a dense fog. Sam continued, "There was an accident, a guy named Tom. He was one of us. I can still hear the sound of the crash. We tried to warn them, but they didn't care." Tears welled in his eyes, reflecting the collective anguish of everyone in the room. The gallery erupted in murmurs, pistons of outrage pulsing through the crowd. Mia glanced at the billionaire, who now wore a mask of impatience, but she saw fear lurking in his eyes. This was going to fade away quietly. "Your Honor, if I may," Mia said, sensing the urgency building. "We need to showcase more testimonies. Let these brave souls tell their stories." The judge nodded, hands poised, ready to listen. "Proceed." With permission granted, Mia gestured for Sarah, a young woman who had worked in the assembly line. She stepped forward, her voice shaking but assertive. "My life changed because I chose to stand up and not just watch," Sarah shared. "I had 2 friends who suffered injuries. I knew I had to fight for them. They deserved better." Their words cascaded, one after another, fueled by shared frustration and hope. Each story painted a vivid picture of the negligence and greed that had caused the tragedies. The tension in the room palpably shifted, the gallery vibrating with solidarity. Mia felt her soul uplifted by this tide of courage. It was becoming a movement. This trial was transforming into a battle for accountability, a mirror to show the world what had been swept under the rug. She could see the judge's brow furrow in concentration, absorbing each testimony, considering the implications. "Are there any more witnesses prepared to speak?" he asked, his voice steady yet taut with urgency. A hand shot up in the back, a young man, likely in his 20s. "I want to share," he called, his voice bold against the courtroom's tension. The murmurs faded, all attention shifted towards him. Mia felt hope blossom. This could be the testimony that turned the tide. But as the young man made his way forward, the billionaire's lawyer, who had remained silent until now, suddenly shot up from his seat. "Objection!" he bellowed. The courtroom fell silent, a collective breath held tight as curiosity tinged the air. "On what grounds?" the judge asked, his voice measured yet firm. The atmosphere shifted with anticipation. What could possibly come next? Mia's heart raced. Could this objection derail their movement? Or was it merely a desperate gambit to distract from the wave of truth closing in? The courtroom held its breath, a tension thicker than any veil of silence. Mia could feel her heart pounding against her chest, adrenaline flooding her veins. She knew this was a critical moment, one that could either empower the voices that rose or silence them altogether. "What grounds do you have for your objection?" the judge asked, cutting through the thick tension. The billionaire's lawyer, a slick figure dressed in a tailored suit, straightened his tie, trying to regain the room's attention. "We believe this witness lacks credibility," he replied, confidence lacing his voice. "He has no experience in the field and is simply here to stir the pot. We urge the court to dismiss him." The murmurs in the gallery rose again, simmering frustration bubbling to the surface. Mia could see the faces of the witnesses, flushed with anger and determination. They were here to share truths that had long been buried under corporate greed, and dismissing their experiences felt like an infringement on their dignity. The judge raised an eyebrow, contemplative. "Your assertion lacks substantiation. Everyone's experience in these matters carries weight." He glanced around, seeking reassurance. "Can the witness please identify himself and share any relevant experiences that may validate his testimony?" The young man paused, his expression mixed with fear and resolve. "My name is Alex. I worked in the warehouse of Greenhill Corp for 3 years." His voice wavered first, but then grew stronger, fueled by the eyes of fellow workers and supporters behind him. I witnessed firsthand the neglect. I saw machinery that was unsafe, and I watched as management turned a blind eye to the risks. Jess smiled, the excitement palpable. This was it. Alex was seizing the moment. Please, go on, she encouraged, urging him forward. I got hurt one day while working a double shift. Cement was not properly stored stacked high like a pyramid, just waiting to collapse. I fell, and thankfully my injuries were minor. But I still can't forget the faces of those who weren't so lucky. Two of my friends, they weren't as lucky as I was. They deserve this chance to be heard. Tears shimmered at the corners of his eyes, heartfelt memories flooding back, overwhelming the air with despair. The tension lifted, and an authentically shared pain began to anchor their purpose, a collective push against the machine of neglect. It ignited the hearts of those gathered, fanning flames of hope that spread like wildfire. Mia felt the energy shift as whispers of unity and determination spiraled through the crowd. Your Honor, Alex said, his voice rising higher with fervor. I believe we cannot remain silent while lives hang in the balance. We owe it to those who suffer to share these stories loudly. They can't speak for themselves, but we can. I can. Tears streamed down Sarah's face, and she exchanged a knowing glance with Mia. This was their moment of truth. It wasn't just about the company or the billionaire, it was about the everyday people fighting for survival. The judge leaned forward, his fingers steepling. I understand you've all come here to seek justice. I will allow this witness to continue. We need to know the full truth. A wave of murmurs washed over the gallery, an anthem of support echoing human resilience. Mia felt a rush of gratitude. The courtroom had transformed, it was no longer just a place of legalities. It had turned into a sanctuary for truth. But just as the judge nodded to give Alex permission to begin, the air shifted again. The billionaire lawyer, now sweating, shot another desperate look across the room, as if calculating his next move. Mia's gaze shifted toward him, feeling the tension re-emerge. What plans did he have in place to fight back? Was this just the beginning of his counterattack? As Alex prepared to share more, the courtroom was set for a roller coaster of emotions. Would the truth be enough to prevail over power? With the stakes rising, hope soared higher, intertwined with the fear of what lay ahead. How far would they have to go to reveal the deeper injustices lurking beneath surface-level smiles? The answers loomed just out of reach. Alex took a deep breath, gathering the strength he needed to dive back into his story. The look of support from those behind him washed over him like a comforting tide. It bolstered his resolve. He could feel their hopes resting heavily on his shoulders, and he was determined to carry that weight. I wasn't the only person suffering at Greenhill Corporation. There were countless safety violations, and many didn't make it out unscathed, he continued, his voice gaining confidence. People worked under conditions that were literally life-threatening, and we were told to keep our mouths shut. Fear kept us silent. But the day I fell, it broke something in me. I realized I couldn't let fear win anymore. Mia's heart raced. This was the impetus they needed. She could feel the warmth of the courtroom's attention shift toward Alex as he continued to speak. Each word he shared seemed to crack open the frozen emotions lying dormant in everyone's hearts. And it wasn't just injuries. It was like we were invisible. Management turned away from us, not just our bodies, but our dignity, our lives. We were just numbers on their spreadsheets. His eyes locked with Sarah's, then drifted over to the crowd. Mia could only imagine the thousands of untold stories echoing in that room right now. I have friends buried under the pressure of this system, and he paused, emotions heavy. I refuse to let their stories die with them. A soft gasp resonated from the gallery, a ripple of shared connection surging through the group. Mia watched, heads nodding in solidarity. The room was pulsating with raw empathy, as if each person present was holding tightly onto their own buried truth. But the billionaire's lawyer was rising now, desperation flashing across his face. He adjusted his tie again, and Mia sensed he was preparing for a fight. Just before he could unleash his counter, the judge raised a hand, forcibly quieting the tension again. "Mr. Larson," he said, addressing the lawyer directly, "I expect you to let our witness finish before you jump in. We're here to gather the full story, and that includes the emotions, the humanity behind these accounts. Please allow him to continue." Alex nodded appreciatively at the judge's firm hand and began again. "We need you all to understand this isn't just about rules or regulations. This is about people. This is about a community trying to survive. I was part of that community. I know mine is just one story, but it echoes the sentiments of many whose voices have been silenced for too long." Mia felt tears brimming in her eyes. She knew Alex's words resonated beyond the walls of that courtroom. They called to anyone who had ever felt lost in a system that didn't care. She felt the weight of each shared burden lift, replaced by a sense of urgency and hope. It was infectious. As Alex spoke on, the air shifted once again. The billionaire's lawyer snapped back, unable to hold his composure any longer. "Objection, Your Honor." His voice was sharp, cutting through the emotion in the room. "This is a setup designed to evoke sympathy rather than provide factual evidence." A hush fell over the courtroom. Alex's expression faltered, confusion etching his features as if the air had been punched out of him. Murmurs of disbelief surged from the gallery, and Mia noticed hands curling into fists around her. The judge's brow furrowed deeply, and Mia could see the tension tighten again like a rubber band pulled to its breaking point. "We're not here for theatrics, Mr. Larson. Do you have grounds for this objection?" The energy flickered like a candle in a storm, each heartbeat in the room echoing the fragility of their hope. What twisted game was the lawyer playing? Could Alex's courageous stand withstand this barrage, or was it about to be dismantled piece by piece? The stakes had never been higher. The truth was dangerously close, yet so perilously out of reach. Would they all be left shivering in the dark if the battle shifted once more? Alex felt his heart pounding in his chest. The lawyer's sharp interruption hung over the room like a dark cloud, but he didn't let it stop him. He drew in a breath, determined not to let fear or doubt overshadow what he had to say. People were depending on him, their stories depended on him. "Your Honor," Alex addressed the judge, his voice steady despite the chaos brewing around him. "With all due respect, this isn't a performance. This is reality. These are people's lives." The judge nodded, his stern gaze still fixed on the lawyer. The courtroom was quiet, the only sound Alex could hear was the heartbeat of hope resonating from the gallery, where family and friends clung to every moment. "Mr. Larson," he heard the judge say. "Your objections are noted, but I believe it's crucial we let Mr. Walker continue to share his experiences fully." There was a palpable tension, and Alex took that moment to lock eyes with Mia. Her expression was one of fierce encouragement. She was giving him everything she had. Gathering strength from her presence, he forged ahead. "After my fall, I spent weeks in recovery. The pain was immense, but the real agony came from the realization that I'd been part of something so much bigger than myself, a system that cared more about profits than people," he explained, emotion flooding back into his voice. "I learned about my coworkers, their families, their struggles. We were all operating under the banner of safety while knowing in our hearts that we were not safe at all." A low murmur erupted from the crowd now, as many people felt the burn of those words. Alex could see some faces nodding, some frowning, faces like Sarah's that bore the hint of shared grief. This wasn't just Alex's fight, this was a community uprising. The billionaire's lawyer was visibly flustered, his polished demeanor cracking as he shifted in his seat, glancing nervously around the room. If he could silence Alex, maybe he could turn the tide. But that wasn't going to happen. Alex was standing firm on the truth. "I'm not here to ask for pity," Alex continued fiercely. I'm here to demand accountability. For too long, we've been stomped on, made insignificant. Every injury, every life lost under Greenhill Corp should matter. He gestured broadly, his voice rising with each beat, charging the atmosphere like an electric current. If we don't speak out, what does that say about us? What does that say about our communities? Are we going to allow their stories to be buried beneath greed? This time, a ripple of applause broke from the gallery. It wasn't just a sound, it was an explosion of relief, a gathering of voices once silenced. Someone shouted, "You're right." Another added, "Keep going, Alex." He felt the momentum shift, and for the first time, he believed they could win this fight. But before he could soak in that strength, the judge's gavel crashed down. "Order!" The judge barked, trying to tame the room. The fervor in the gallery simmered down, but Alex could see the fire in their eyes. He was touching something deep within them, something worth fighting for. "No matter how this case turns out," he pressed forward, "we need to create change. This isn't just my story. It's ours, and it must be told." Just then, the billionaire's lawyer shot back with furious resolve. "Your Honor, I believe my client deserves to confront these accusations with evidence my opponent offers no proof of." Alex's heart sank momentarily. Had they poured everything into a moment that could still be snatched away? The tension in the room felt suffocating again, a weighted silence that threatened to drown out the hope that had ignited. Would they be able to prove the depth of their truths before it was too late? What proof would it take to topple a giant who had thrived on lies? Alex's resolve threatened to waver. How could they possibly match the billionaire's resources, his power? The words of the lawyer drilled into him like a relentless hammer. Evidence felt like a brick wall, presenting an impossible challenge. The courtroom faded into a blur around him, the buzz of whispered conversations echoing in his ears. Mia leaned closer, her hand brushing against his. "You can do this," she whispered, her warmth grounding him in that moment. He turned to her, mustering a smile that he hoped would carry some of the optimism that was bubbling within him. Then, as if on cue, a young intern, barely out of law school, shuffled in from the back of the courtroom. Her face was flushed, partially from running, partially from nerves. She clutched a stack of documents tightly against her chest, clearly flustered but determined. Every eye turned to her, including the judge's, an unexpected interruption that breathed life back into the stagnation of the proceedings. "Excuse me, Your Honor," she stammered, catching her breath. I have new evidence." The words hung in the air like a lifeline tossed into a tempest. The billionaire's lawyer narrowed his eyes, his smug confidence faltering. "Aren't you late?" he sneered, trying to regain control. But the intern stood firm, acknowledging the challenges. "Yes, but this evidence, it's crucial. It could change everything." She took a step forward, unfurling the documents with shaky hands. Alex's heart raced. Could this be what they needed? He couldn't take his eyes off her as she began to lay out the papers on the judge's desk. "These are the internal reports from Greenhill Corp that were never released to the public," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "They detail safety violations, ignored complaints, and even cover-ups regarding past accidents." The murmurs in the gallery grew, the tension rapidly replacing panic with renewed hope. Alex felt a surge of adrenaline. What had just happened? Was this the breakthrough they had craved? "Your Honor, if I may," the intern pressed. "This is evidence that shows a pattern of negligence. We could prove the company prioritized profits over safety, even when lives were at stake." The judge leaned forward, intrigued. "Are there any witnesses or sources to corroborate this information?" "Absolutely," she replied, raising her chin defiantly. "I've contacted several former employees willing to testify about the hazards they faced." The billionaire's lawyer fumbled again, attempting to regain his clutch on dominance. "It's inadmissible. We'll see about this so-called evidence." "No." Alex stepped forward, his voice firmer than it had been moments before. This needs to be heard. If we don't dive into this, if we don't speak up about their failings, we're losing our chance, our story. It's time to expose the truth. This isn't about winning a lawsuit, it's about ensuring this never happens again. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted dramatically. The weight of fear that had threatened to drown Alex now transformed into a wave of collective empowerment. Suddenly, they weren't alone in this fight. The community, the families, everything they had fought for felt alive again. In that charged moment, Alex locked eyes with Mia again. Her smile broke through the storm, radiating warmth, and his heart soared. Had they finally gathered enough momentum to challenge the giant? "Your Honor," the judge declared, interrupting the moment that felt suspended in time. "Let us take a recess and gather this evidence properly." As the gavel came down, Alex felt the fierce complexity of emotion swell in his chest. Was this the beginning of the end for Greenhill Corp., or just another hurdle on a long road? For the first time, one question surged within him: could one act of courage spark a fire that would illuminate the shadows? The courtroom buzzed with a charged energy as the judge called for a brief recess, allowing the witnesses to exchange glances, or reflected in their eyes. Alex could feel the weight of an entire community behind them, each person left vulnerable yet empowered by the unveiling of truth. He leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath as the adrenaline coursed through him. "Did you see that?" Mia exclaimed, eyes sparkling with determination. This could finally be enough to turn the tide. If we can get those employees to testify, it'll add undeniable weight to our case. He nodded, trying to channel her hope, but uncertainty still flickered in his heart. But what if the evidence gets dismissed? He has so much power, what if it all falls apart again? Mia put her hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "We can't think that way, Alex. The truth is powerful. We just have to push forward together." One by one, the gallery buzzed with murmurs of excitement, their collective spirit rekindled like a flickering flame that refused to be extinguished. All around them, disheartened faces transformed into determined ones, people brought together by shared pain, ready to seek justice against the injustices they had suffered for too long. The judge returned to his seat, setting the uniform stage for their return. The anticipation loomed, thick as molasses, as everyone awaited what would follow when the gavel came down. "Court is back in session," the judge declared, and silence fell like a curtain as all eyes shifted toward him. "We will allow the new evidence to be presented, but I expect full integrity in the accusations made." Mia and Alex exchanged a look, an unspoken promise of unwavering support. This was the moment they had long awaited. Jess stood tall beside Alex, holding her breath. She had transformed from a nervous intern to a fierce advocate, ready to bring in the pivotal witnesses who'd suffered too. "Your Honor, I would like to introduce our first witness. This is Sarah, a former production line worker at Greenhill Corporation." As the young woman approached the witness stand, Alex couldn't help but admire her resilience, a living testament to their shared experience. Sarah's voice quivered a bit, but she pressed on each word, an inspiration for others, building a case not just for herself but for those who had slipped through the cracks unseen. "I worked under severe pressure. Safety measures were a joke," she began. "We had managers who wouldn't listen. It was all about producing numbers, about profit. We were told not to complain, or we'd lose our jobs." The gallery of families listened intently, their hearts ached with recognition. Every word sliced through the fabric of indifference, knitting together the tales they'd long buried in fear and isolation. "I remember one day," Sarah continued, her voice shaking, "Jim, a fellow worker, was caught in a malfunctioning machine because safety protocols were ignored. He almost lost his life." Gasps echoed softly, but Alex stayed focused on Sarah, feeling a whirlwind of pride and compassion. With every testimony capturing the struggle, the gallery leaned in, embracing the narrative they desperately needed, the truth laid bare within those walls. As Sarah finished, Jessica called forward the next witness, Miguel, who spoke of the same negligence, recounting tales of near misses and unsafe working conditions. With each tale, the weight of the corporation's negligence mounted. One of the jurors, a composed woman with short brown hair, jotted frantically, no longer an uninterested listener, but an engaged participant in the quest for justice. Witness after witness took the stand, their stories a powerful tapestry of shared struggle. The more they spoke, the more the tide turned not just towards a verdict, but toward a movement demanding accountability, change, and healing. Finally, it was Alex's turn to address the courtroom once more. Looking back at the sea of hopeful faces, he invited them to share their stories aloud. We are all interconnected. No one is alone. If you've been hurt, if you've suffered, please come forward and let your voice be heard. A wave of energy surged as hands started to rise, the feeling of a momentous shift, as if something larger than themselves had ignited. The judge sat quietly, seemingly moved. Enough. I'll allow this court to hear these testimonies. Let us bring forth the community stories that forge our truth. An eruption of supportive cheers filled the room, shaking off the weight of despair like rain washing away the dust of neglect. The path ahead was still uncertain, but hearing those voices aloud galvanized them into a powerful command for change. Mia touched Alex's arm gently. We're on the right track. This is finally happening. Beyond the courtroom, the world began to shift. These brave stories sparked conversations throughout the community, each witness a candle igniting the darkness of indifference. Their truths began to spread like wildfire across social media, igniting conversations that would unite not just Chicago, but the entire nation against corporate greed. In that moment, surrounded by honesty and solidarity, Alex felt the burden of their fight become lighter. He realized that they weren't battling just for victory today, they were reclaiming their sense of dignity, their stories, their humanity. That's it, Mia whispered, catching his gaze and nodding towards the gallery. This is about more than just winning. It's about all of us standing together. And as the testimonies flowed, a wave of inspiration coursed through Alex, knowing they had shifted from shadows into the light. It was the moment he had long craved, an undeniable testament to their strength and resilience over the forces that sought to keep them hidden and oppressed. The fight for accountability surged. All they had to do was stay strong, keep speaking out, and let their voices ring loud and clear. The battle had transformed into something more than just a legal case. It was a movement, a wave of transformative change on the horizon. Beneath the weight of the gavel, they had finally pushed back against despair. This was their victory. Together, they had uncovered the truth that would shake the foundations of indifference, a truth that would spread far beyond the courtroom, echoing through time. Encouraged, Alex raised his chin, ready to help lead the charge for lasting change. And then, sensing the unity in their cause, Mia squeezed his hand, sharing a radiant smile. In that moment, Alex knew that change was not just possible, it was inevitable. The courtroom buzzed with fervor, the gallery's excitement crackling like electricity in the air. This wasn't just a trial, it was the birth of something immense, and they were just getting started. Now, it was time for their voices to be heard, for the truth to strike like a powerful storm between them and the darkness that loomed. With renewed purpose, they stepped boldly into their collective future, erasing the fear of silence forever. But the journey wasn't done yet. As they prepared to wrap up their sessions, a palpable shift hung in the air. Alex felt the powerful call to action pulsating through him, an urging reminder that this transformation needed to be shared. And you? If you're here with us, let us spread this message. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss exclusive stories filled with transformation. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to be inspired. Your support matters now more than ever, and together, we can make this spark grow into a blaze of change.